Let's talk about technology, mocap and face capture. Using the Unreal game engine for complex special effects used in the movie The Shift. We're back with Brannon Hollingsworth in part 2 of our interview about his work through Brainy Pixel Productions. He's going to give some great information for aspiring voice actors looking to work in animation, and valuable guidance for anyone looking to pursue a career in animation or virtual effects.
This is the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast, helping filmmakers who share a Christian worldview stay in touch, informed, and inspired. Quiet on set. Rolling. Your hosts, Geoffrey and Jaclyn Whitt.
Welcome to the members portion for the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. Today, Jeff and I are speaking with Brannon Hollingsworth of Brainy Pixel Productions. So obviously with animation, there's the whole production side. And, I'm more on the live action kind of thing. I'm a screenwriter and I also, do voice acting. But I'm just curious, how does someone break into this field? And let me just pick actors at the moment. So for myself as a voice actor, I was more into radio and audiobooks, but I have always dreamt of doing voice acting for animation. So how would an actor get involved with working with you specifically? Or do you not do that part?
No. We absolutely do. I mean, for instance, the lady who did the voice for Lily, for Lily's Lab, is a known quantity in the voice acting world. She's been on DuckTales, and she was the voice for Baby Rolf on Muppet Babies when we were kids. And, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon way back in the day, when I was watching cartoons in the afternoon. And she's been doing this for years and years, and she's an amazing vocal performer. So for voice actors specifically, continue doing what you're doing and let people know that you're interested in doing voice acting for animation. It's really not a lot different than what you're doing now. It's the same tools, the same toolkit that you're using, whether you're doing, books or what have you. You do have to learn a little bit about character acting because you are embodying a character with nothing but your voice. So definitely that's one way, but, just kind of let people know that's what you're doing, and we'll get around, at least in this industry, because it's really not nearly as large as you think it is. And then there's another opportunity as well, which is a little bit unique to what we do, and that is actually mocap acting or face capture acting. And this is something that technology is rapidly changing and making easier. For instance, when we were working with Mark Lowry to do Grandpa Mark, he's a bit of a tech, he's a geek, right? He's a tech guy, even though he's on up in years. He loves playing around with new technology and new apps and his phone and upgrading his computer. That's one of his passions. And so he was able to literally sit in his house and sing and act to his iPhone. And we were able to capture his face and vocal performance through a specific piece of software and pull that down and then use that to drive a large portion of his animated character. So it could literally be as easy as what we're doing right here, talking or acting to your computer. Now, the mocap is a little bit different because you have to put on the suit, but that actually is changing as well with technology. The cameras are getting high fidelity enough, and they're understanding, they're getting smarter. The software is getting smarter to understand an object in 3D space, so it can track your movements or track even multiple people's movements with just something like an iPhone. And we've done that before, and the results are really, really very, very clean and very strong in terms of the data that you can collect. So I would say start experimenting. If you're looking to get started in this area, then start experimenting. Do some search on mocap, do some search on face cap. You can reach out to us. We'll be happy to tell you what we're using, and start playing around with it and add it to your portfolio, add it to your reel, because if people see that you can do it or you have done it, you're more likely to get more work doing it in the future.
And so for your studio specifically, how do you do a casting call? Where do you put that information?
Sure. So we will, what we typically do is we have a mailing list that we tell people if they will join our mailing list. That is the first place we do any kind of casting calls or open calls, is to our mailing list. And then after that, if we don't find what we need there, then we'll go out and we'll blast it on the web. We're partners with ChristianCasting.com on Facebook, which is a very large and very prolific Christian casting community. They've got a new app called Room 4. Definitely jump on that app. It's wonderful and growing by leaps and bounds. And then depending on the specifics, there are sites. I think voices.com is one that is specific to voice actors that we might even go to that level. But typically by the time we hit Facebook, we've got plenty of stuff to go look at. So our kind of is mailing lists first, then we usually do Christian Casting in the Room 4 app, and then we'll hit the web at large. And by the point we've done that, we're usually inundated and have way more than what we need. And then we go through that process of reviewing those. One of the things we're really passionate about when we do an open call, we give everyone feedback. We don't just, throw you into the reject pile and not let you know. We may let you know that you didn't make it, but here's why. We try and help exhort and grow other Christian creatives in everything that we do, because we're so passionate about encouraging Christian creatives and helping to empower them to do what God's called them to do in this industry, because we desperately need more Christian creatives who feel like they're empowered to go do what God's called them to do.
That's amazing. That is so beneficial. Like, I'm just thinking of how many times I've auditioned for something that I think I did an amazing job at, and then I didn't hear anything. I just know I didn't get it. But I would love to at least know, even if they were like, you did a great job, but we wanted someone with a different tone or something like that. And then I would know it's not me, right? Like, I can't be that person. Or maybe they didn't like my accent, like whatever, right? But let's just say, for example, that you put out the casting call, I audition, and you guys decide, oh, we love this woman, right? Like, we want her. Would I have to come to your studio, or is that something that can be recorded remotely? How does that part work?
So typically it depends on what facilities you have available to you. Rarely do we need to have someone fly to us and do something locally. We can typically do everything we need to remotely with high-speed internet, and with meetings like this being high fidelity as they are. For instance, on the Super Scout show, we had a gentleman come from Atlanta. He came up to, Brainy doesn't have a sound recording studio, but we have a partner in town who has a very high-class studio. So we rented his studio for the day. We got in there, and then we had the director virtually from California on a Zoom meeting who was directing the folks in the booth. And it worked out great. It was almost like he was, there, except you couldn't hug his neck at the end of the recording session. But we had a guy come up from Atlanta, and occasionally we'll have someone fly in. But no, we can do most of it virtually. We're working on a show right now where, if we can get it made, it's going to be a 2D comedy, and we're probably going to fly people into Nashville, where we've been blessed to get access to a very high-end studio there with an amazing composer and sound engineer. And we may be doing it from that facility just because it's been offered to us. And if you've got that ability, why not use it? But most of the stuff we can do virtually if we need to, which is a huge blessing and a huge cost saver.
That's amazing. And actually, I'm very excited right now. You're probably going to hear from me, especially since I'm thinking like, okay, as much as I would love the part, I'm also excited at the fact that you would give feedback. I think that is just so beneficial for actors.
Well, to us, we see that as a very clear call as Christians, right? Is that if you're putting yourself out there and you're saying, hey, this is my best offering, then we at least need to let you know, right? So that if you're doing great, but you just weren't for the part, that's great for you to know. If you didn't quite make it because of this reason or that, then you need to know that as well, because hopefully you're wanting to hone your craft so you can bring a better offering next time. Because ultimately, we're all trying to use the skills, gift, talents, and abilities that God has given us to bring our best offering. We never want to bring our second best. And so if you don't know, you don't know to improve. So that's really, really a core part of kind of who Brainy is. And that's the way we do with our interns and anybody that we work with, is we just want to help everyone bring their best offering. So.
The Faith and Family Summer Screenwriting Bootcamp is coming up on July 28th. 3 live online masterclasses in one day. Learn how to polish your screenplay with Jaclyn Whitt. Write deeper characters with biblical techniques with Sean Gaffney. And write to produce your own story with George Escobar. It's a rare thing to advance your screenwriting skills this much in one day. Go to FAFFassociation.com or click the link in the show notes and register today for the Faith and Family Summer Screenwriting Bootcamp. Yeah, so we're back with Brannon Hollingsworth, and we want to talk about the shift and virtual effects in film. Tell us about that whole aspect of your work.
Well, first of all, we were super blessed to get that job, and it was an amazing experience. And Angel Studios, they do it right. I mean, they do it the way it ought to be done. So we were super blessed to be there. We felt like newbies because we were newbies. Honestly, it was the first film set I'd ever been on, so it was really cool. But initially, we had a pre-production meeting early in 2023 with Brock and with the producers and with the DP to understand kind of what they wanted, and they wanted a kind of a whole list of things. And we were able to do some of those. We weren't able to do others, and they were able to do that with their other visual effects folks. And that's typically the way this industry works, is you have VFX house, and some of them are really good at doing explosions or lasers or particle effects or creatures or what have you. Very rarely will you find a VFX house that does it all, because it's all really hard and it's all really technically challenging. So for us, one of our strengths is utilizing something called the Unreal Game Engine, which is an engine that's put out by Epic Games. It's primarily used for making video games like Fortnite, famously. That's made by the Unreal Game Engine and by the folks at Epic Games. And we've been using this technology for years. We were very early adopters of it. We saw the potential, and we jumped into it and started trying to figure out how we could utilize it primarily for animation. And so what we were able to do is, one of the big ideas that Brock had was he wanted his character to shift between different universes. And so we were charged with creating about 7 or 8, I can't remember how many it was now, 7 or 8 entirely different worlds, 3D environments where the actor could be filmed against on an LED screen, or like a baby volume, right? It was not a complete volume, but we kind of worked with the VFX team to pull something together that would work for the shot. So we got the job. We went off and started building essentially some kind of mock-ups, some pre-visualization kind of ideas of what might work for the script that Brock had written. And then we were able to sit with the team and down select and go, well, we like this, but we don't like this. Let's bring that element into this. And, ooh, I really like that ice world idea. I didn't have that idea originally. So instead of doing, our busy market street, let's do an ice world or what have you. Again, this kind of goes back to our early conversations about understanding what's really expensive and what's really hard to do in animation and in visual effects, and what's really cheap and more affordable. And so an example was, one of Brock's original idea was like I think a busy, bizarre street with lots of people. Well, that becomes really expensive because you have to build all those people. You have to model them. You have to texture them. You have to give them clothing and, their skin and their hair. You have to rig them, and then you have to animate them. So we said, well, instead of maybe this busy, bizarre, why don't we think about something a little bit more remote and alien, like maybe, an ice planet or something like that. And Brock really liked that idea. So once we had gone through this kind of pre-production process of understanding what it was we were going to go build, we then started going and building these things in 3D, and we were giving, occasional updates to Brock and the team. They began to get the ideas of maybe having some foreground elements for some of the shots that we would match to kind of create a seamless transition from real world into 3D world and help blend that, help make that magic happen. And so we started building those specific assets, but we got images and reference from the prop department. So, like, hey, we want this torch to be in the foreground. So we want some torches like it in the background. So we built those in 3D and rigged them up and everything. And then, everything was said and done. We had everything built and approved, and then we waited for our day to go shoot. And so we went and shot and got everything in the can that Brock wanted, and it was awesome. It was a very, very long day. It was like about a 16-hour day for us. So it was a lot of work, but we got it done, and it was really awesome. And then before the show was done, they called us back up and said, hey, we've got some screen replacement work that we need done, which is anytime in live action when you film a screen, whether it's a phone or whether it's a TV or even something in the background, a bulletin board or what have you, you can't show what's on that screen. So you have to what's called green screen it. You have to typically cover it with green paper or blue paper. And then your visual effects team comes in and puts something on the screen that the production owns. Because if you put MSN up there, you owe them royalties and you have to pay them money to put their content on your screen. And so they called us up and said, hey, can you do some green screen replacement? And we did a bunch of that for them in the early scenes of the movie. The character's in I think like a bar, and there's all TVs that are announcing this bad thing that happens. And we did all of that green screen replacement. We created the content that went on those screens. The visual effects team actually placed it there, but we created all of that from scratch and worked with Brock very closely to get exactly what he wanted. So it was super cool. It was kind of our initial foray into the world of visual effects, and we loved it and would love to do more of that. And we'll just see what the Lord has in store for us. So very, very neat.
You mentioned a long day on set. So what was involved in that day for you as the virtual effects? I think you had mentioned, was it LED screens that these virtual effects were shown on? Or
Yeah, there was a visual effects supervisor, and he and his team were on set, making sure that all the shots, whether they're lasers or whether shifting happening or whatever, where they're getting all the plates that they need for that. Well, they were also in charge of, they had built this, I called it a mini volume. It was a whole set. I think it was about 12 or 14 very large LED screens that they had set up. And we had some virtual motion tracking from the camera that Brock and the DP were using that they were tracking in 3D space. And we helped set that up and get that working appropriately. And then we were there making sure that the environments were working and that the light and everything was exactly the way the DP and Brock wanted. And so it was a lot of kind of in the minute on set, tweak this, tweak that. We got to get this shot. Can't wait around. Let's get her done. So yeah, it was pretty hair raising. It was definitely different than sitting in your jammies at home, creating animation. It was a totally different process, but it was fun.
Yeah. And the depth of the technology is beyond someone who hasn't actually been there and worked on that.
Well, I would encourage folks you can learn almost anything on YouTube these days. And if you're specifically interested in the Unreal Game Engine, Epic Games has a tremendous learning center. I think it's like learning.epicgames.com, where they've got these college level courses with videos and tests and, documentation. They have gone well out of their way to make sure if you want to learn something, you can go learn it if you want to invest the time. And it's a tremendous career for young folks that are out there, or even older folks. If you want to get into this space, there's really no reason why you can't, because you've been given all the tools for free if you'll apply yourself and spend the time. It's a tremendous resource.
Well, that's really good advice. It's great to hear your experiences. It's also great to kind of get some direction for those who are interested. Thank you.
Yeah, well, if we ever want to know, we've learned it the hard way. So we're happy to share whatever wisdom we've been attributed. So.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing all the stories and the insight and the direction. And, it's something that I really didn't have very much of, if any, knowledge on before. And so, now, I know it's just the tip of the iceberg, but I don't feel as lost as I once did. So there's that.
Well, that's what we're all about, right? We're supposed to be exhorting and edifying one another and helping one another. That's what the body does.
Amen. That's
one of the great benefits that we as Christian creators, that we have, that the secular market doesn't have. They're all out for themselves and making themselves better. And yet what we should do is make one another better. And that way, all of us together can glorify God in a more amazing way. So let's help one another. Let's pull together and make amazing things for God.
And that's our goal as well. That's why we have this podcast.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Well, thanks again. We really appreciate your time and your insights. And we look forward to meeting you hopefully sometime in this coming year at a festival.
Yeah, likewise. Would love to hang out. That'd be great.
All right. God bless.
God bless you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Faith and Family Filmmakers Podcast. If you would like email reminders about newly released episodes and more, please sign up at faffpodcast.com/email. That's faffpodcast.com/email. Bringing filmmakers together for faith and family.
That's a wrap.